This video deals with business performance management. It's one of two videos on this particular topic, and needless to say, both should be viewed. To start, the business performance measurement system should help to align top-level strategic objectives and bottom-level initiatives. This is sometimes called goal congruence. Goal congruence means that the different parts of the organization are all aiming at the same target. They're all aiming to achieve the same thing. There's agreement within the organization about the direction in which the business is moving. So the top-level strategic objectives and what happens on a day-to-day basis, they're all moving in the same direction. There is an alignment of objectives throughout the organization, and this is facilitated by the business performance measurement system, because the performance measurement system can identify areas that are not performing well, that are having problems, and can arrange intervention, perhaps managerial intervention, to fix any mismatch or any shortfall in any one part of the organization. But all of the different parts of the organization are all pulling together. They're all aiming to achieve the same output, which is the achievement of the top-level strategic objectives. But the business performance measurement methodology can also identify opportunities and problems in a timely fashion. When there is performance measurement taken throughout the organization, when different functions are subjected to scrutiny, and when the business performance measurement system has set benchmarks for performance, and when particular functions are not meeting those benchmarks, when they're not coming near the benchmarks, that can trigger off investigation and remedial action. The management may be called in and the process looked at again and reviewed and perhaps altered, but fixed. That's the whole idea. It's fixed in the sense that it's going to make a contribution and pull the organization towards the achievement of its strategic objectives. So the measurement idea is very important. When different functions can be measured regarding their efficiency, regarding costs, or whatever the particular indicators are based on. But when they can be measured, then it's possible to identify opportunities and also identify problems, and it can be done in good time. The business is not waiting. The management is not waiting for disaster to happen. The business is being monitored and measured at critical stages throughout. The measurement system also helps to determine priorities and allocate resources based on the priorities. Some functions will be more important than others. Some functions will be critical in terms of meeting customer orders and customer requirements. Other functions may be running over a longer period and related to some other aspect of the business. It doesn't mean that they're going to be ignored. It means they're not immediate priority. And the measurement system can indicate where management needs to focus its efforts on almost on a day-to-day basis, where it needs to focus its efforts and bring up solutions and fix problems that are going wrong. Other issues are also being monitored, but perhaps they're not as pressing. They can be dealt with later. The performance measurement system can also help with introducing flexibility, and this can be done by adjusting measurements, in particular as the processes and the strategies change. Now the processes could change because of the onset of new technology or better ways of working or better design or changes in the product itself. And strategies could also change. The business may reorientate some aspect of the business because of some opportunities that have come its way. But whatever it is, the measurement system is in place, and then the various measures that are taken, the various indicators that are used by management, these can be adjusted and can be altered in the light of changing processes because of perhaps technologies or changing strategies. So the performance measurement system is flexible. It requires management to intervene, to look at the benchmarks, to look at the indicators that are being used, to see if they're still relevant or if they're still realistic. But they can be updated. An active performance measurement system should delineate responsibilities. It should set out the responsibilities of who's involved, who's responsible for particular functions, and it should understand the performance relative to responsibilities, and also look at reward and recognize accomplishments. When management is working in an area that's been monitored, that there is a performance measure on this particular aspect of the business, the management who are responsible should be congratulated when they hit the benchmarks. They need to be motivated. They need to be reassured that they're doing a good job. It's not simply that they are hitting particular benchmarks or hitting particular targets. It is more to do with their application to the job, their motivation, their interest, how they conduct themselves, how they go about their work. So who is responsible for that particular task should be identified. And then if the task is performing well, they should be rewarded accordingly. If the task is not, if the measurement is indicating that the target has been missed by a long way, then management will need to get involved and investigate why is it that the manager who was responsible didn't meet the target. What happened? It should also identify opportunities to take action to improve processes and procedures based on data. So it's important that the measurement system collects data or information of some form and enables some sort of analysis of that data so that management can then intervene. But they can only intervene, in a sense, properly if the data requires it. Now I say that because the management can intervene anywhere, but really if everything's working well and the processes are meeting their targets, then management would be better employed doing something else. Just leave the processes to run. They're hitting the targets. There may be a review of the targets to see if the targets were too lenient, and perhaps tougher targets should have been set. But that's a different issue. In terms of the processes, if the various processes within the business are successfully running, then management would be better employed in some other aspect of the business that needs their attention. It also, the measurement system, it also enables planning and forecasting in a reliable and timely fashion. When the management has information flowing back about key areas and it has data from the key areas, from these particular tasks or functions, and it can compare the data coming back, the actual data, with the required data, the targets, then it can forecast what's likely to happen in the business. It can intervene if need be, and it can do all of this in a timely fashion. It's not waiting for a disaster to happen, as I said earlier. It's not waiting for a line to break down, for the company to come to a standstill. It's intervening in, if you like, an orderly fashion. It's under control. The situation is under control. They're intervening to improve the situation or to reduce the possibility of breakdown. Now, one technique that's often talked about in the context of measurement, and it's quite popular within the literature, is this idea of a balanced scorecard, sometimes abbreviated to BSC. But the balanced scorecard, let's have a look at what this is. It's a performance measurement and management methodology that helps translate an organization's financial, customer, internal processes, and learning and growth objectives and targets into a set of actionable initiatives. That's quite a complicated definition. Really what it is it looks at the business's financial, that's 1, customer, 2, internal processes, 3, learning and growth, 4, objectives. So it's got 4 objectives it looks into, and it turns these targets related to these 4 into a set of actionable initiatives. It turns them from, if you like, from aspiration levels, almost from theory, into practice. It removes them from the realm of paper and turns them into actionable initiatives. It takes them off the paper and does them. So they are not simply statements of intent. And really we've got four parts here. Now the meaning of balance, it's the balanced scorecard. Well, the balanced scorecard is designed to overcome the limitations of systems that are financially focused. Sometimes organizations can focus in too much on the financial side. Since they're almost too worried about paying the bills and getting the receipts in and making sales, and they're very focused on this. And sometimes it can be overdone. It can be focused to such an extent that it tends to start to forget about other crucial areas in the business, which is, in terms of the long-term survival of the business, this is dangerous. The business has to be balanced. Different parts of the business need attention from time to time. And the whole business should be balanced to ensure its long-term survival. Non-financial objectives fall into 3 perspectives. Now, if you remember earlier, I just counted 4. Well, if we take the financial, then we'll have 4, but the non-financial are 3. The 3 perspectives are customer, which I called out earlier, and we'll have a look at these in detail in a second. Customer, internal business processes, learning and growth. So we have 3 perspectives which are non-financial, which under the heading of the balance scorecard, these need attention. They need to be monitored. So let's have a look at the different perspectives just to see how it fits together. We'll start with the vision and strategy of the business. What is it the business wants to achieve and what strategies are it going to pursue? Well, we have the financial, because financial is important. It's one of the functions of the business. So what's the role and involvement of stakeholders in the financial success of the business? Well, the stakeholders could be the shareholders, it could be the workers, it could be the customers. The customers want the product. They're interested in the product. Customers benefit from having the product. So when we look at financial, we have to look at the various stakeholders and what their financial interests in the business are. The shareholders want a dividend and want security of investment. The employees want good salaries and wages and good conditions of work, which are going to cost as well, and perhaps some fringe benefits, healthcare, whatever, company cars. But the customer also wants the product because the customer benefits from having the product. The product meets a customer need. So we have this very complex relationship that underlies the financial relationship, underlies the actual market for the product, the pricing of the product, the revenues, and so on. But nonetheless, we should identify it and identify the people who are involved in this. Now, the non-financial ones, I said there were 3 of those. Well, we have the internal business processes. So what processes should the business develop in order to get a strategic advantage over its competitors? What should the business do exactly? What products should it make? How much should it commit to research and development? Where should it position its product? In which part of the market? Which segment of the market? What price should it charge? What are its terms and delivery conditions? And so it's looking at the internal business processes. How should it structure itself to get a competitive advantage? How should it structure itself in terms of reducing cost and its commitments to, let's say, total quality management and various efficiency drives? And it's internal, but it's a very important aspect of the business and of the measurement methodologies. These need to be set in place and then they need to be measured. Learning and growth. What functions and processes should be developed to facilitate learning and growth? And what do we mean by learning and growth? Well, the learning organization is one that takes in information from the market and learns from it, learns from what customers want and learns from what customers don't want. Learn from the experience of marketing in certain areas, learn about how prices are set and how mistakes can be made and rectified. So it's learning from its own existence. It's learning from the information that it's collecting. But it's also learning by observing what the competitors are doing and observing the trends in the market. And it's attempting to grow through making investment in machines and capital and in people, training people to have the skills and aptitudes to make products or deliver services that are in demand. So it's developing a set of learning and growth objectives which will further the organization and help it to grow into the future. The customer, well, to achieve the vision, how should the customers be treated? Customers have requirements, they have needs, and it's the customer experience of the product that is going to determine the future of the business, the quality of the product, the number that was supplied to the market and the time of the delivery, the price of the product, the aftercare services, and the various contacts that the customer can have with the business. Quality issues can be flagged up this way. Warranties associated with the product. So the customer is of vital importance. The customer is the person who's going to buy the product. The person or the company or the institution that's going to buy the product is the customer. And that's where the revenue for the business comes in, and that revenue finances everything else. So clearly the customer is of extreme importance. The balance scorecard, the term balance arises because the combined set of measures are supposed to encompass indicators that are both financial and non-financial. Well, we've seen that. We've seen that financial is one of the parts of our diagram, and we have three other parts. So the balance arises because the combined set of measures are supposed to encompass indicators that are both financial and non-financial. They're leading, in other words, they are setting targets that stretch into the future and pulling the business in various directions, but also they're lagging. They're learning. The indicators are learning and measuring what happened in the past, learning from the past. They're measuring past performance and trying to work out what happened in the past, what factors influenced sales or what factors influenced production in the past. There are internal and external factors as well. Internal, the costs within the business, the layout of the business, training of personnel, the capital equipment, the stores, the raw materials, the philosophy for production. Is it TQM? What is the philosophy? And then there's the external. The customer, in a sense, is outside of the system. And the customer will have many other influences in his or her life, or if it's an organization, in its life. So that the buyers ultimately will be looking at the product perhaps amongst many products and trying to decide whether to purchase it or not. There's also information which is quantitative and qualitative. Not all the information in business can be quantified. So measurement methodologies may rely heavily on quantitative, trying to work out how long it takes to make something, or how much raw materials in the stock on average or whatever. It tries to work out quantitatively. But there's also qualitative information. Information about perhaps worker performance, which is difficult to quantify because people have good days and bad days. It may be qualitative information about the quality of the product, which is perhaps measured subjectively. We might look at the products and say these are good quality. We're not actually measuring them, we're just looking at them and getting a feeling for the product. But that's important. Even though it's not quantifiable, our perceptions of the product, our feelings about the product, these are important. And the timescale is important, long-term and short-term. Sometimes initiatives can be taken based on measurements, and these are short-term. Fix it now because it's not performing now. This function is broken down, it needs to be fixed, we do it now. Fix it now, short-term. Long-term, we really need to look at whether we need a new machine, or this one needs overhauling and a lot of maintenance work. Long-term. But we need to find a way of taking it offline without interrupting the flow of production. Take it off and patch it up. Give it a good treatment, a good maintenance treatment. So we have short-term and long-term. Employees come in new into the organization. In the short term, they're not very efficient. They're not making a good contribution. They're not acculturated. They're not a part of the business in a sense. They're only learning. In the long term, they will start to grow into the business and start to make contributions. Aligning strategies and actions. Well, the balanced scorecard enables an organization to align its actions with its overall strategies through a series of interrelated steps. For example, identify strategic objectives for each of the perspectives. Now we have 4 perspectives we mentioned earlier, and arising out of those we have this various set of ideas about long-term, short-term, quantitative, qualitative, and so on. Now, try to identify strategic objectives against each of the perspectives. What should the company do? to achieve its various perspective, what it wants. What should the company do? Associate measures with each of the strategic objectives. These should be a mixture of quantitative and qualitative. If you're looking at people, then look at expenditure on training. Look at time allocated for study, perhaps study of particular functions, or perhaps mentoring. Look at the cost of mentoring when a senior member of staff teaches someone new in the organization about the organization, about the processes. But that is costly. Look at that. That's quantitative. It can be measured. But look at the qualitative as well. Look at the benefits of having people who are engaged, who are working in the organization, who seem to be happy and contented within the organization, who have pride in the quality of their work and pride in being involved. So try to get measures, get feelings, if you like, and identify these against each of the perspectives. And you're associating measures with them. But you're not, you're being more realistic. You're not looking for just quantitative. You're being more realistic. You're looking for quantitative and qualitative. You're looking for information, which can come in different ways. It's possible to assign targets to the measures. Having identified the various functions, the financial, the customer ones, the learning and growth, and so on, having identified these, it might be possible to assign targets that the company wishes to have particular training programs in place by a certain date. It wishes to improve labour productivity by a certain amount because of the training programs. It wishes to engage in new marketing to new customers and alter the product in line with customer feedback, and it should be achieved by a certain date. And they're assigning targets to the various measures. And what it's doing is taking the information that is being produced within the business and also looking at external sources of information, but primarily from within the business, and setting targets. List strategic initiatives to accomplish each of the objectives. So look at the various initiatives that are being planned and see how the objectives are going to be met. So look at the initiatives. What's been planned for the business? What's the business planning at the moment? How is it implementing the plan, and what does the plan involve? And then try to see how it's going to achieve its objectives through implementing those particular plans. Or do the plans themselves need modification? Is it necessary to go back to the plans, make some alterations, and come back and do it again? After all, the organization is learning all the time. So plans, strategic initiatives, these will be subject to change as the business acquires more information about its own activities. So the objectives have to be compared with the initiatives. The initiatives should be orientated towards the achievement of the objectives. But sometimes, as I said, because of technology or because of new personnel or changes in customer taste or government legislation or whatever it is, initiatives have to be updated, have to be changed. And it's still important that the objectives of the business are being met. Link the various strategic objectives through a cause and effect diagram called a strategy map. It's a good idea just to simply set out the various objectives, the strategic objectives, and try and get a cause and effect. If this, that will happen. If that, something else will happen. So it's got the various strategic objectives, and then link it through a strategy map. Let's have a look at what we mean by this to see if we can make it a bit more tangible, a bit more real. A strategy map is a visual display that delineates the relationship amongst key organizational objectives for all four of the balanced scorecard perspectives. So we have the four balanced scorecards perspectives as we had earlier, and now we're looking at the relationships among these particular objectives to try and see how they can be brought about. So let's start at the very bottom here. We'll start with learning, let's say. Now we have two parts here that we could identify immediately. We could say we have developing key skills within the organization. These are key skills that relate to the organization. We'll assume that the people working there can read and write and do basic arithmetic, but sometimes organizations require particular skills. The person should be able to access the database, the company database, or the person should be able to make presentations or collate information and analyze information, whatever. Develop key skills, part of the learning objective. And also it could be to improve culture. Improve the culture of the business in the sense that the business is learning about the customers and what the customers want. It's learning about the local community and what they want from the business. They want a business that's not polluting the atmosphere and causing noise. The government wants a business that's growing and creating employment and creating apprenticeships for younger workers and looking after the older workers. And so it's a culture of the business. So the business is learning all the time from its own activities and from the various, if you like, external pressures, external sources of learning that come at the business, that hit the business. The needs of government, the needs of the local community, the needs of the workers, the needs of the customers. And all the time the business is learning from all of this. Now we move from learning internal. Well, if we take the key skills and move up one, we see we improve research and development performance. That could be one. The improved culture, well, create new products because the business is developing, it's maturing, it's now able to develop new products. It has a team that are working in the interest of the business, who relate to the business, create new products. And both improve research and development performance, create new products, will identify and capture new business opportunities. So now the business is growing because it's identifying new business opportunities. So we've moved from the learning to internal, and we're carrying through the key skills that were developed in learning, the more cohesive nature of the business, the improved culture within the business, and bringing it all together, there's a better environment within the business for new product development and new business opportunities. Which of course goes to the customer. It's building a stronger customer relationship. The customer gets a new product, more functionality, perhaps at a cheaper price, more stylish. The customer is happier. The company is innovating, it's keeping up to date, and it's pleasing the customer. So there's a stronger relationship with the customer. And the financials. Well, stronger relationships with the customers means strong growth in key segments and better financials, more sales perhaps, more efficient organization, costs have been reduced. So what we've got is a series here building from learning, internal, customer, financials. And in the financials we have this almost culmination that the business is now successful. What we've done is we've divided the business into these four parts, which is the balanced scorecard approach. Now, balanced scorecard certification. Well, balanced scorecard collaborative offers software vendors the opportunity to have their applications certified against well-defined set of criteria. Software vendors can be approved. Let's say people selling softwares can be approved. Their applications can be certified against a set of criteria. There is a movement towards enabling organizations to get certified in terms of the balance they've got within their organization. Of course, some organizations will not want that. They will want to keep their processes private. They don't want to give away too many commercial secrets. Now, in terms of software development, as this example here, where they have been, let's say, validated as having good balanced scorecard procedures, the application in this case to the end user, it must have the ability to view. The application must offer the end user the ability to view strategic objectives from four perspectives. We have four perspectives, and looking at the strategic objectives of the organization, we should be able to look at the organization from these four perspectives. The measures, targets, and initiatives associated with each of them should also be clear. It's not just a question of saying that an organization has four perspectives. We should be able to look into these, look at the targets, look at the measures, look at the initiatives that are conducted within these four perspectives. The cause and effect relationship amongst the objectives should also be borne in mind. In the diagram we had earlier, you could see where research and development and new product development led to better customer satisfaction. There will be a lot covered up in what I've just said there, because the new product development will have been subject to a lot of analysis and a lot of customer involvement, focus groups, surveys, information from information from marketing section, and so on. So there'll be a lot of information that will have gone into making that decision. So this idea of balanced scorecard certification, well, what we're trying to say here is that to say that a company is using balanced scorecard, then be it whatever, looking at different types of industry, different types of sector, there must be the possibility of looking at the business from the four perspectives, looking at the targets and the measures associated with them, and looking at how the various parts of the business are connected. Well, that's all I need to do in this session. So it's introduce the balanced scorecard, and you should now have a perspective of using the balanced scorecard and being able to assess the whole performance measurement system in terms of the balanced scorecard. That's all we're going to deal with in this session. I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.